Mark Rogers TV USC edition coming your way every Wednesday night. We can only do it with Nick Dempsey from Conquest Chronicles to break down the latest in USC football. And even though there are no more games to be played for, and I hate to mention this, Nick, 8 months, there's plenty to talk about, of course, with National Signing Day coming up in 3 weeks to hopefully fill the roster with a number of 4- and 5-star recruits to replace all those guys that, unfortunately, being college football fans, we have to see go on to the NFL a year early. And so, Nick, we've got some news on the NFL front, don't we?
Yeah, so star wide receiver for the Trojans, JuJu Smith-Schuester, has decided to turn pro. Not a huge shocker because he's had, some amazing seasons with USC. I'm not sure if he can improve his draft stock really any by coming back for another year. He had a kind of a letdown this season, which I think was probably one of the main reasons people thought there might be a chance he comes back. Started off slow, much like pretty much everyone else at USC this season. Started off poorly. Then started getting red hot after Sam Darnold came in at quarterback. And after that, Darnold started spreading the ball around. So JuJu did not see as many targets, but you saw other guys like Burnett and Pittman and others step up. But I think he's certainly made his case for being an elite NFL-ready wide receiver. And he's going pro, and you wish him the best of luck, and now you just hope that someone else steps up in that line of elite wide receivers for the Trojans.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the production drop from 89 catches to 70 this season, still caught 10 touchdown passes, finishes his USC career with 25 total touchdowns. I don't know how JuJu Smith-Schuester projects as a return man in the NFL. He was certainly counted upon that in his previous years at USC, but this season only one kick return for the entire season, so kind of taken off that duty as being one of the older statesmen of the class and being one of those guys that's maybe a little bit too valuable at times to put back there, or maybe it was ineffectiveness, I don't know, but not necessarily part of his game going into the NFL.
I don't think that switch had anything to do with JuJu. I think the Adoree Jackson happened. And so, when you got Adoree Jackson returning kicks like he does, thanks JuJu, but you're just stick to catching balls.
Well, yeah, I definitely would have mentioned that because, of course, Adoree's the guy back there, but there were a few other guys that still worked into the mix, both as kickoff and punt returners, mostly as kick returners that stole a few away. But of course, Adoree's the star in that phase of the game and in a number of phases of the game. And that's a perfect segue because we're still wondering whether with about 4 more days to determine eligibility for the NFL draft and make that decision, Adoree's decision is still out there.
Yeah, Adoree Jackson and JuJu are pretty good friends, and they kind of made it clear there's a package deal that one decides the other is going to follow. And so a lot of folks thought, JuJu Smith is going to the NFL, and rightfully so. So Adoree must be on his way out the door as well, headed to the NFL. But Adoree Jackson, by all accounts, is still going to class. USC came back to class this week. Adoree was there. He tweeted from class. So, if you're going to the NFL, if you're preparing for the draft in April or May or whenever it is this year, it doesn't seem like you'll have a lot of time for class in January and February when you should be preparing for the combine, getting an agent, doing all these things. So a little bit interesting there that he's still going to class, which leads a lot of people to believe or perhaps hope that Adoree's coming back to play another year. Perhaps he got his evaluation back. Did not necessarily like what he heard from draft scouts. That could be a possibility, but Adoree's still up in the air, and he's running out of time to declare if he's going to make a move to the NFL now. So it'll be interesting to see what he does, but we're still waiting.
Damien Mama Definitely a player who, once he stepped on campus as a freshman, made an immediate impact, got plenty of playing time as a freshman. Honorable mention as a Pac-12 selection there, started every game as a sophomore and continued on for the rest of his career. So only playing 3 years at USC, still with 30 starts, and he's moving on as well.
Yeah, and that's one of those things you would have loved to have Mama back. He's quite talented, but 30 starts, that's a lot of wear and tear on the big guys. And so, you get it. It's concerning though if you're USC, because you're also losing off the offensive line. Now Mama's gone. You're losing Chad Wheeler, and of course, the big man Zach Banner. Those two are seniors, so we knew they were moving on. So you've got 3 guys to replace on the offensive line. And that's concerning. You've got Sam Darnold, who's red hot. You've got a coach that wants to maintain balance between the run and the pass. And typically we see when teams have to replace 3 offensive linemen, they don't do so well. It's tough to move the ball. And so if there's an area of concern, now I'm not saying that, Damien Mama coming back would have completely reversed USC's fortunes next year, but you got 3 guys you got to replace on the O-line. So, if there's an area of concern for USC, I think one up front will absolutely be, who they're replacing on the offensive line. So, Damien Mama isn't a killer, but it hurts to go from two replacements to 3. Especially since you've also had problems at center with injuries and everything else. So now all of a sudden you might have to, hopefully they can reload instead of having to reconstruct the whole line. But that's going to be interesting to watch how they develop that.